them from wind, rain, or even snow. You'll be in the know with severe weather information 24/7. When severe weather breaks out, we break in anytime with what you need to know to keep your family safe. Brought to you exclusively by ServPro of Piatt DeWitt Counties, your fire and water restoration specialists.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. Brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the phone today, Jack Myers with Social Security. Good morning, Jack. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Seth. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Not bad. You got to be riding high after the Cardinals doubleheader sweep yesterday. That's got to be a good little pep in your step this morning.
Hey, yep. Doubleheader sweep is always sweet, right?
No doubt. No doubt. And apparently, so you and I talk baseball a lot. I'm a Mets fan, right? Apparently, when you win 21 of your first 30 games and you happen to lose a game, on a random Wednesday in April, apparently the sky is falling for Mets fans. So that's,
Well, I remember, speaking of a doubleheader sweep, we recently went into New York and experienced the wrong end of a sweep, so I'm not doubting your Mets just yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that 4-game sweep. That was like the first time since the 80s or something like that they've done that. So I think it worked out pretty well for them the last time they ended up doing that to St. Louis. So, but we'll leave the the history lessons for another day. Anyways, Jack, some great stuff to dive into with you today. Let's start with again, topic that just doesn't go away: identity theft. Let's start there today. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of heard the term by now, of course, identity theft, but I thought maybe we'd take a minute to just sort of break it down and kind of go a little bit deeper into it and, what it means exactly and how you can guard against it. So I guess it's broadly defined as when someone uses your personal information to impersonate you or steal from you. And learning more about identity theft can help you keep your personal information safe. There are a couple different types of identity theft. Number one, there would be situations where thieves steal your data physically or digitally without actually contacting you directly. And then there's the situation where they contact you directly and convince you to provide sensitive information or money. And those are kind of the scams that we spend a lot of time talking about guarding against. And if you're a victim of identity theft, you may never really know what happened or how it happened if they didn't contact you directly. So if you weren't a victim of a scam and you can pinpoint where you gave that information out, you may not really know how they got your information. If they did contact you directly, the impact is pretty clear immediately if they steal from you. But what if they just get your info? Okay, so what if they don't get any money from you up front? You don't feel that immediate pain from it. What are the dangers of them having your information? What could they do with that sort of stuff? Well, unfortunately, there are quite a few things. They could buy items with your credit cards or bank accounts. They could obtain new credit in your name. They could use your Social Security number to get a job, open phone or utility accounts in your name, steal a tax refund, use your health insurance to obtain medical care, pretend to be you if they're arrested. That's a horrible thought, right? I actually know somebody who that happened to, and she had a lot of trouble kind of working through that. So that can be a really nightmare type scenario. So there are a lot of things they can do if they get that information, and it just makes it that much more important to protect it as well as you can. And, don't feel relieved just because they didn't get money from you instantly, because having that information is also potentially a danger to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's dive into some prevention things, Jack. And, first of all, I guess, how do you prevent yourself from becoming a victim of identity theft? And then, if something, you talked about all the ways that these people can use that information, how do you spot it? Let's dive into those two things.
Yeah, so I think for spotting it, what you want to do is just sort of remain aware, kind of keep track of mail for missing bills or other documents. Pay attention to those credit card and bank statements for unauthorized transactions. I know sometimes we get in a hurry and we don't always kind of go line by line through those things, but it's a good idea to do that. Make sure you notice the little things because they could be signs of bigger problems to come. And then it's also a good idea to obtain and review your credit reports regularly to make sure that they don't include accounts that you have not opened. You can do that at www.annualcreditreport.com. So that's a good way to get that credit report and just kind of take a peek every once in a while, once a year or so, to make sure that there's nothing on there that you're not familiar with. So that's how to spot it. Now, how do you prevent it? Well, that's a great question. And unfortunately, there's no 100% foolproof way to prevent it, but there are steps you can take to minimize your risk. Number one, protect documents that contain your personal information. Number two, ask questions before giving out your Social Security number. A lot of times places ask for it, but they don't always need it. So don't be afraid to ask, hey, do you really need this? A lot of times you'll find out that they don't. Sometimes they might, and then you'll have to deal with that. If you're opening a bank account or applying for credit, they're going to need that. But there are other times where they don't need it. And if you question it, they might just say, don't worry about it. You also want to make sure you're protecting your personal information online by using a strong password and multi-factor authentication when offered. And as much of a pain as it is, use different passwords. Don't reuse your passwords. I know it's tempting, but the problem with that is if one place gets compromised and you've used that password everywhere, then your password is out and your password to everything is out. So that's why you want to use different passwords, different places. And then the last thing I'll mention, Seth, sorry to cut you off.
You're fine. No, go ahead.
Don't overshare on social media. That's a problem that people have. There's a lot of data mining out there, and you often put all that info out yourself that people can use against you. So be careful with that.
No doubt. And you talked about that password thing there, Jack. I mean, gosh, it is so easy just to use that same password over and over. So you don't have to, use the, keep remembering, what did I do? What did I do here? What's the variation of my password I used on this one? It's easy to fall into that trap. And, we joke about it, some of us younger people that just save our passwords, left and right. And it's the same one. And we just save them right to whatever device we're using. Maybe the folks that write down all their passwords in a notebook and their usernames and all those things, I'll tell you what, maybe they're onto something there, Jack. Maybe they are.
Yeah. It's possibly true because, that physical document that's safeguarded somewhere is probably pretty safe, unless you have a break-in. That's probably not, as long as it's not sitting out in plain view at your house, that's probably not a terrible idea.
Very good. Hey, Jack, what do we do if something like this were to happen to us? How do we respond?
So a few things that you want to do. Number one, if there's some sort of fraud with a particular company, you're going to want to contact them right away. But when you do that, be careful because there are a lot of scams out there right now where it's sort of multifaceted or multi-phase, and the call comes in from them. So to the extent possible, make sure you are initiating the contacts with that company. Sometimes there's a little bit of something to get your attention, and then a call comes in from that supposed fraud department, and it's all part of the scam. It's all part of, I'll call it a long con. So be careful with that, and to the extent possible, you look up that phone number and initiate that call yourself. You could also contact the credit bureaus like TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, place fraud alerts on your credit report. There is a federal government agency, the Federal Trade Commission, that you can file a complaint with, and they have a website, identitytheft.gov. Often you're going to want to file a police report as well. And then we've got some good information about all this on our website. So if you go to ssa.gov, you can find a pamphlet called Identity Theft and Your Social Security Number. and it'll kind of go through some of this stuff that we've been talking about here this morning.
Jack Meyer, Social Security, our guest on the phone today. Jack, along those lines, QR code fraud. QR codes, gosh, they're so popular. I mean, it's such a convenient way to get access to a website. Instead of listing out this long URL, you just QR code it. But I tell you what, I didn't really think about it. I've heard this a few times, but I always forget. There could be the QR codes that have some nefarious means on the other end of that. Let's dive into this here this morning.
Yeah, Seth, and I don't want to be an alarmist here. I like QR codes. We use QR codes here at Social Security on several different things. So I don't mean to imply that they're bad and you need to stay away from them. But I think what sometimes happens is people get a little too comfortable with them. And I think what you have to remember is a QR code is just a link in a different format. Okay, so it's a quick response code. You hover over it with the camera app on your smartphone, and then it'll pop up a little banner telling you where it's going to take you. If you tap on that, you go to that website. So just pay attention to that, just like you would with a link that you're clicking on. Make sure you're paying attention to where that QR code is going to take you, because sometimes people can create, like you said, nefarious versions that they overlay over real ones. So, it might be on a parking meter or a menu or a magazine where there was once a real one that was legit, but somebody put a fake one over the top of it. So just pay attention to that sort of thing when you're hovering over those and using those. Not to say you shouldn't use them, but like I said, just use a little caution, a little care, and remember, treat it just like a link, because I think a lot of us anyway are pretty comfortable nowadays with kind of scrutinizing to an extent the links we click on. We should do the same thing with QR codes.
No doubt. Well, Jack, diving into more on QR codes, let's talk a little bit just about obviously the like with QR codes, the variety of ways scammers will get to you using this. How will they? I mean, we see these everywhere, right? Restaurants, the menus are QR codes. How will scammers utilize a QR code? Where will you see it at, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, really, you could potentially see it anywhere. The physical ones are probably a good opportunity for that. So, if you had the menu, for example, or you have a sign somewhere, what you might want to look at for just sort of a physical perspective is, does it look like the QR code is something that was stuck on top of the document? Is there a menu sitting there that a QR code was printed on, but then there's a sticker over the top of it or something? So that's sort of the first thing you could do. Color mismatches, has the rest of the menu faded at a different pace than that QR code? Those are little things to look at. And maybe there's a legit reason for that. Maybe the new QR code was placed on there by the facility, but it's something to notice. And then when you notice that, pay attention, like I said, when you hover over it with your device, where it's going to take you, because that's level 2 of this investigation, if you will. Where is that link going to take you? If it is a particular restaurant and it's routing you to something kind of weird and different than what you'd expect, then I wouldn't click on it. So that's the sort of thing you want to look for. That's the way you can be cautious. Unsolicited things that arrive via text message or email, you want to be careful with that. Like when we at Social Security use QR codes, we don't send them through text messages or emails asking you to confirm information. We just have them on some of our signage here in the office and some of our publications that are available on our website at SSA.gov.
Very good. Jack, did we miss anything on that topic you want to put out there for us?
Just one thing I'll kind of circle back to. We've talked many times, but when we talk fraud, we talk identity theft, we talk QR fraud, all that sort of stuff. It's just serving as a reminder to be cautious when the phone rings, when a text message comes in. I heard yesterday one of my wife's coworkers was kind of nervous because he got a text about a toll violation. Well, it wasn't true, but at first it caught him off guard because it was like a last notice. And so you just have to be careful with that kind of stuff. And if you want to learn more about scams and what's going on, we've got some resources on our website. So if you go to SSA.gov, www.social.gov/scam. You can kind of read a little bit about what we're hearing with Social Security impersonation scams, and you can even see how you could report that sort of activity to our Office of Inspector General if it's in any way Social Security related.
Jack Myers, Social Security, my guest on the phone this morning. We'll take a break here. More to come with Jack on the morning show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Thursday. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network, a steady start for corn, beans, and Chicago wheat. May corn opening 469 and a quarter up to. July corn up 1.5, 477 and a quarter. New crop December 449 up 2 3/4. May beans starting the day 1034 and a half, down 1/4. July beans up half a penny, 1045. New crop November up 3/4, 1019. May Chicago wheat 517 up 4. July wheat up 1/4, 531. September wheat 545 and a half, up half a penny. May bean meal starting the day 289.40, down 60 cents. May bean oil 48.57, down a penny. Opening numbers at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Thursday morning. I'm Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network.
Baum Chevrolet Buick offers full transportation options while giving you peace of mind. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. This is what we do every day. We listen to you, give you options for routine maintenance, major mechanical problems, or collision repairs with a staff that's knowledgeable to find the best option for you. Baum Chevrolet Buick, your full service dealer. See us at baumchevybuick.com right from the start.
SIU Family Medicine wants the best health for you and your family. Be a champion. Protect your loved ones. The SIU Center for Family Medicine of Lincoln is accepting new patients. Click their icon at DeWittDailyNews.com to schedule your appointment.
Hi, I'm Brett with Central Cremation Center. We're proudly offering pet cremation services to help keep your faithful companion close to you. Learn more about our pet services by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Jack Myers with Social Security, my guest on the phone today. Jack, let's dive into, of course, we celebrate Memorial Day later this month, and I know yearly we take time to highlight the conversation of how Social Security goes the extra mile for those veterans in our communities. Let's dive into that here this morning.
Yeah, we are officially in the month of May now, Seth, so I think it's a good time to highlight this. You know, as we all know, towards the end of the month, our nation celebrates Memorial Day to honor military service members who have given their lives for our country. And at Social Security, we want to remind families who have lost loved ones that Social Security benefits may be payable to surviving family members, including spouses and children. So if you're a military family who's lost someone, obviously we want to pay particular attention on Memorial Day and in the month of May, but always, it's always important to honor these families and their sacrifices. And if you want to learn more about survivor benefits from Social Security, you can go to our website at ssa.gov/survivors. But then we also want to take a minute to recognize and support those who didn't lose their lives, but maybe lost their livelihood. You know, there are wounded warriors. There are people who become disabled. And so Social Security benefits, disability benefits can help financially if you're unable to return to work. And, obviously we offer disability benefits, Social Security or supplemental security income for all people who become disabled. But for veterans, there are a few things that we want to kind of highlight, and a couple things that we do to try to, I guess, serve as a special thank you for their service. And number one is something called our Wounded Warrior Initiative. And this is applicable if you became disabled while on active military service on or after October 1st of 2001. And then the second way is through what we call our 100% permanent and total initiative. So basically, if you have a 100% permanent and total VA compensation rating for VA disability, we can expedite your disability claim. So under both of those circumstances, the Wounded Warrior or the 100% permanent and total, what we can do at Social Security when you apply for disability is we can expedite that application. Now, we still have to go through our process of evaluating whether or not your condition qualifies for disability through our program, because our program and the VA are not the same, but this enables us to make a faster decision for you, to essentially put your disability claim to the front of the line, and really that is as a thank you for the service that you've provided for your country. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to our website, ssa.gov/people/veterans. And then if you're not quite sure, if you didn't necessarily understand the difference between VA benefits and Social Security benefits, I do want to highlight that they are definitely different, and you may want to consider applying for both. And then we have a fact sheet on our website. So if you go to our publication section, there's something called Social Security Disability and Veterans Affairs Disability. How do they compare? So if you go to ssa.gov/pubs or just look for our publication section, in the filter box, if you just type veterans, then you'll pull that one up along with a few others that might be of particular interest to veterans.
Sounds great. Hey, Jack, let's quickly wrap up with, we're embarking on the busy travel season, and maybe we can dive more into this next month in early, oh my gosh, it's going to be June next month. Holy cow. Let's dive into Social Security and access while traveling. Just quickly give us the highlights of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of all know, obviously, that the internet is available wherever, it's not just in your home. But I think what I wanted to kind of touch on here is that if you are out and about and you've got a little bit of downtime, more so than you normally have in your hectic, busy schedule as you enter into vacation season, as long as you have secure internet and you're not on like a public Wi-Fi or something, I would encourage you to take a few minutes and go to ssa.gov. Set up a mySocialSecurity account if you haven't already done so, and take a look at what's in there. Like I said, on vacation, we tend to have a little bit more free time than we normally do. So if you get up early before the rest of your family, take a few minutes while you're waiting for everyone else to get up and check that out. You might find some good information in there and be on the way towards planning for your future and that sort of thing. So at ssa.gov, then look for mySocialSecurity.
Jack, you always bring great stuff to the table every time we have you on. We'd greatly appreciate it. One more time, where do folks go for all things Social Security? More on the topics we talked about today. Where do they find it?
ssa.gov.
Jack, good to talk to you, man. Appreciate your time today. Jack Myers, Social Security, my guest on the phone. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. Brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Network News is now.
WHOW.